The promise ring was burning a hole in my pocket. I kept touching it beneath the table, checking that the small velvet box was still there. After 7 years together, I had finally decided tonight was the night I would ask Emily to marry me. I had imagined her smile 100 times. I had imagined her tears. I had even imagined the way she would throw her arms around me after saying yes. Instead, she sat across from me with both hands wrapped around a glass of water, staring at it like it could save her from the conversation waiting between us. "Ethan, we need to talk." My fingers stopped moving. Something inside me already knew. I forced a small smile. "About what?" She lifted her eyes, then quickly dropped them again. "Us." The restaurant suddenly felt too quiet. Our food had arrived 10 minutes earlier, but neither of us had touched it. The candle between us flickered against the wine glasses. I could hear silverware from another table, soft music from the speakers, and my own heartbeat pounding harder than it should have. I leaned back. "Is something wrong?" Emily took a slow breath. "I don't know how to say this without hurting you." That sentence hurt more than anything that came after it. "You can just tell me." Her fingers tightened around the glass. "I don't think I love you the way I used to." I stared at her. For a moment, I honestly thought I had heard her wrong. "What?" She swallowed. "Our relationship has become comfortable, Ethan. Safe. Predictable." I waited for the rest. She finally looked at me. "And I don't want safe anymore." My hand moved toward my pocket. The velvet box suddenly felt heavy. "Is there someone else?" Emily didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence gave me the answer before her lips did. I looked toward the empty chair beside her. "Ryan." Her eyes widened slightly. "He came back a few months ago." A cold feeling moved through me. "How long?" 3 months. 3 months. She had been talking to him for 3 months while sleeping beside me, eating dinner with me, asking about my work, and kissing me goodnight. I stared at my untouched plate. "Does he know about me?" Emily's expression changed. "Yes." A bitter laugh almost escaped me. "Of course he does." Before she could continue, a familiar voice came from behind me. "Emily." I turned. Ryan Blake stood beside our table in a dark suit, one hand resting casually in his pocket. He looked confident, too confident. His eyes moved to me, and the smallest smile appeared on his face. "Didn't expect to see you here." I slowly looked at Emily. She didn't look surprised. That was when I understood. This dinner had never been a breakup conversation. It had been an announcement. Ryan pulled out the empty chair beside Emily. "I'll wait outside." He didn't wait for an answer. He walked away as if the restaurant belonged to him. My mouth went dry. "You planned this." Emily shook her head. "I didn't want to embarrass you. You brought him here. I needed to know what I was doing." I stared at her. "You already knew." She looked down. That was enough. I reached into my pocket and touched the little box again. I could have opened it. I could have dropped to one knee. I could have reminded her about the summer we met, the promises we made, the nights we stayed awake talking about our future. I could have begged, but I couldn't make myself compete with another man for the woman I had already given everything to. "Are you going to stop me?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. I stood. "No." Her head lifted. "You're not going to fight for us?" I placed some cash on the table. "You made your choice, Ethan." I stopped beside her chair. "I hope it gives you what you're looking for." Her eyes became wet. "Can you at least give me some time?" I looked at her for several seconds. "Time for what?" She had no answer. I walked away. Outside, cold air hit my face. Ryan was standing near the entrance, checking his phone. He looked up as I passed. "I'm sorry, man." I stopped. He gave me a small smile. "I know this isn't easy." I almost laughed. "Then don't make it easier for yourself." His smile disappeared. I kept walking. The drive home felt longer than usual. Every street reminded me of Emily. The coffee shop where we had our first date. The park where we had our first kiss. The bookstore where she once told me she wanted to grow old with me. By the time I reached home, I felt like I had been carrying a body inside my chest. Our house was dark. I turned on the kitchen light. My phone vibrated. "Emily, please don't make any decisions tonight. I need time to think." I stared at the message. Then I walked to the bedroom. Our photographs covered the wall. Graduation, Christmas, beach trips, my 21st birthday. Her 25th. Years of smiling faces. Years of believing those pictures meant something permanent. I opened my drawer and took out the velvet box. My hands shook as I opened it. The ring caught the kitchen light. I had bought it 2 weeks earlier. I had planned everything. I placed the ring beside our oldest photograph. Then I stepped back. My father was standing in the doorway. I hadn't heard him come in. He looked at the ring, then at me. She said no. I shook my head. She didn't even let me ask. He walked into the kitchen and pulled out a chair. I sat across from him. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he looked at the ring. You still love her? Yes. Then why did you leave? I looked down. Because she wanted someone else. He nodded slowly. Then don't confuse love with losing yourself. My eyes burned. I thought if I loved her enough, she'd choose me. My father leaned forward. You've been fighting for her for years, Ethan. He paused. Ask yourself when she last fought for you. I couldn't answer, because I already knew. My phone vibrated again. Another message from Emily. Please give me time. I don't want to lose you completely. I read it twice. Then I turned the phone face down. The ring remained on the table. I didn't pick it up. I didn't call her. I didn't chase her. That night, for the first time, I understood something painful. Emily hadn't left me tonight. She had left me long before I finally noticed. The next morning, I woke up to another message. But it wasn't from Emily. Claire Morgan, we need to meet privately. I have a proposal that could change both our lives. Claire Morgan was waiting for me when I entered the private lounge. She sat beside the window with a folder on the table, perfectly calm, as if she had invited me there to discuss a business deal instead of my ruined relationship. I pulled out the chair across from her. You wanted to see me? Her eyes stayed on mine. I did. I waited. She opened the folder and pushed several documents toward me. My family company is under attack. I glanced at the numbers. By whom? Blackstone Holdings. They've been buying our debt through 3 different firms. If they acquire enough shares, they can force my mother out. I studied the papers. And what does this have to do with me? Claire folded her hands. Everything. I almost smiled. I'm not exactly in the mood for riddles. Your technology company has what my family needs. Our investment network has what your company needs. She paused. There is one problem neither of us can solve with money. I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. What problem? Control. She leaned back. If our families become legally connected, Blackstone loses the ability to isolate either company. Your investors gain access to our international network. My family gains protection from a forced takeover. I stared at her. Legally connected? Her expression didn't change. Marriage. The word landed harder than I expected. I pushed the documents back. No. Claire didn't react. You haven't even heard the terms. I don't need to. You loved Emily for 7 years. My jaw tightened. Don't use her name to sell me something. I'm not. Her voice softened slightly. I know what happened. I stood. I don't need your sympathy. Good. She closed the folder. Because I wasn't offering sympathy. That stopped me. Claire rose slowly. I am offering you a partnership. I turned toward the window. Outside, the city moved like nothing had happened to me. People crossed streets. Cars passed. Office lights turned on. My life had shattered. Yet the world had continued. Why me? Because you are capable, stubborn, and independent. A faint smile touched her lips. And because Emily will never expect it. I looked back. There it is. What? Revenge. Claire's eyes hardened. If I wanted revenge, I would have asked you to destroy her. She stepped closer. I am asking you to build something with me. I stayed quiet. She lowered her voice. One condition. I waited. We never pretend this is love. The honesty caught me off guard. No fake romance. No promises. No expectations. None. And if one of us changes our mind, we walk away. I looked at the papers again. Part of me wanted to reject everything. Another part of me wanted to run as far from Emily as possible. Maybe Claire saw the war inside my face. You don't have to marry me because you're angry. Her voice became quieter. Marry me only if you want a new life. Those words followed me home. My father was sitting at the kitchen table when I arrived. He took one look at me. What happened? I placed Claire's proposal in front of him. He read it twice. Then he looked up. You're serious? I don't know. That isn't an answer. I sat down. She needs protection for her company. I need investment for mine. And Emily? I looked away. That isn't part of the deal. My father tapped the papers. Then don't make it part of the deal. I stayed silent. He leaned back. If you marry Claire just to make Emily regret losing you, you'll wake up every morning still married to Emily in your head. His words hurt because they were true. I don't want Emily anymore. Then prove it to yourself first. The next morning, I called Claire. I'll do it. She was quiet for a moment. Are you sure? No. A small breath escaped her. At least you're honest. I want the boundaries in writing. You'll have them. And neither family controls our personal lives. Agreed. 1 bedroom. Separate. I almost smiled. You really thought of everything. I had to. Then let's get married. 2 weeks later, I stood beside Claire in a small private ceremony. There were no flowers covering the walls. No orchestra. No crowd. Only a few family members, 2 witnesses, and the woman who had once been Emily's greatest rival. When Claire reached for my hand, her fingers were cool. She didn't squeeze. She didn't pretend. Neither did I. We signed the papers. The officiant looked at us. You may kiss. Claire glanced at me. I gave her a small nod. She touched my cheek, leaned closer, and gave me a brief kiss. Nothing dramatic. Nothing passionate. Just a promise that we would honor the agreement we had made. Later, inside the car, I opened my wallet. Emily's photograph was still there. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I removed it. My hands didn't shake this time. I replaced it with a copy of my marriage certificate. Claire noticed. You don't have to do that. I know. Then why? I closed the wallet. Because I need to stop carrying something that already ended. She didn't respond, but her expression changed. That evening, our marriage became public. By morning, every business website was talking about the alliance between Carter Technologies and Morgan International. Then Emily called. I let it ring twice before answering. How could you do this? I leaned against my desk. Do what? You married Claire. Yes. You couldn't even wait? I closed my eyes. You asked for time. I needed time to think. You made your choice. Her breathing became uneven. You married my biggest rival. I married a woman who came to me with honesty. That isn't love. No. My voice stayed calm. It isn't. There was a painful pause. Are you trying to hurt me? I looked at the marriage certificate on my desk. No. Then why Claire? Before I could answer, another voice came through the phone. Because she doesn't owe you an explanation. Claire stood in my office doorway. I hadn't heard her enter. Emily went silent. Claire. Claire reached for my phone and gently lowered it. Your relationship ended before our marriage began. Her eyes stayed steady. You don't get to decide when Ethan is allowed to move on. Emily's voice came through the speaker. You don't even love him. Claire's fingers tightened around the phone. That isn't your concern anymore. She ended the call. I stared at her. You didn't have to do that. I know. She placed the phone on my desk. I wanted to. Something inside me shifted. Not because Claire had defended me, because she had done it without asking for anything in return. That night, we sat across from each other at the dining table. The house was quiet. Claire traced the edge of her glass with one finger. I never expected to care. I looked up. About what? About what Emily did to you. She paused. When I saw you standing there while she chose Ryan, I thought you would hate her forever. I waited, but you didn't. Her eyes met mine. You just walked away. She looked down at her wedding ring. I don't know what that means for us anymore. My heart beat faster. Claire's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I thought this marriage would always be a business arrangement. She slowly lifted her eyes. Now I'm not sure I want it to stay that way. 3 months after my wedding, I stopped checking whether Emily regretted losing me. That was the first sign that I was changing. My company had survived the chaos surrounding my breakup, but survival was not enough for me anymore. I wanted growth. I wanted control over my own future. Most of all, I wanted to wake up without wondering whether someone else still had the power to ruin my day. Claire helped me get there, not by taking over, not by telling me what to do, She simply trusted me. You should reject this offer. I looked up from the contract. Claire stood across my office with a cup of coffee in her hand. You haven't even read the final page. I read the first 9. That isn't the same thing. She placed the coffee beside my laptop. The investors want 30% of your voting rights. I turned back to the document. They're offering twice our current valuation. And taking away your control. I studied her face. You noticed that? A small smile appeared. I noticed things. I took a sip of the coffee. It was exactly how I liked it. 2 sugars. No cream. Emily used to know that. Years ago. Then somewhere along the way, she stopped noticing. Claire never asked how I wanted my coffee. She simply remembered. Reject it. I decided. Claire nodded. Good. You didn't even try to change my mind. You're my husband, not my employee. Those words stayed with me longer than they should have. Our marriage had started as a contract. Somewhere between board meetings, late dinners, and quiet mornings, it had become something I didn't know how to name. One night, I came home after midnight. The kitchen light was still on. Claire was sitting at the table with her laptop open. You're awake. She closed the screen. You haven't eaten? I wasn't hungry. She pushed a plate toward me. Then eat anyway. I stared at the food. You cooked. Don't look so shocked. A quiet laugh escaped me. She leaned back. You've been working 16-hour days. So have you. I married a workaholic. I picked up the fork. You married a businessman. I married a difficult man. That made me smile. She smiled too. Nothing dramatic happened. No confession. No kiss. Just 2 people sharing dinner at midnight. Yet that simple moment felt warmer than many years I had spent trying to make Emily happy. Then my phone vibrated. I glanced down. Emily, can we talk? Please. My thumb hovered above the screen. Claire noticed. She didn't ask who it was. She didn't reach for my phone. She simply continued eating. I locked the screen. The message remained unread. That night, I understood something. Peace did not always come from getting answers. Sometimes peace came from refusing to chase them. Across town, Emily's life was falling apart. I didn't know all of it yet, but I began hearing pieces through business reports and mutual contacts. Ryan had gained influence inside her family's company. Then he started demanding more. Board seats, financial authority, access to private accounts. One afternoon, Claire entered my office holding a folder. Your instincts about Ryan were right. I opened it. What did you find? Several payments moved through shell companies connected to his former business partners. I scanned the records. My stomach turned. Where did you get these? An analyst from my mother's company found them. I kept reading. Ryan hadn't returned to Emily simply because he loved her. He had returned when her family was vulnerable. He had studied their weaknesses. Then he had positioned himself as the solution. My phone rang. Emily. I let it ring. Again. Again. Then a message appeared. Please answer. Something is wrong. Claire glanced at the phone. You don't have to ignore her because of me. This isn't about you. I know. Her voice was calm. That is why I'm telling you. I picked up the phone. My thumb hovered over Emily's name. Then I placed it face down. Claire didn't smile. She simply returned to the documents. That was what I appreciated most about her. She never demanded that I choose her. She trusted me to choose for myself. 2 days later, Emily appeared at my office. The receptionist called me. She says she won't leave. I closed my laptop. Send her in. Emily walked through the door, wearing the same perfume she had worn on our first date. I hated that I remembered. She stopped when she saw me. You look different. I've been busy. Her eyes moved toward the wedding ring on my finger. She swallowed. I thought you'd be angry. I was. And now? I moved on. Her fingers curled around the strap of her handbag. Can we sit? I pointed toward the chair. She sat slowly. I made a mistake. I didn't answer. I thought Ryan was the person I was supposed to be with. Still nothing. I thought you were too safe. My eyes dropped to the desk. And now? She looked down. Now I understand what safe meant. Her voice cracked slightly. You were always there. I leaned back. Yes. You remembered everything. I stayed quiet. My favorite food. My mother's birthday. The medicine I needed when I was sick. She wiped beneath one eye. You never made me feel like I had to earn your love. I finally looked at her. And you still chose him. Her lips parted. I know. That single sentence carried more regret than an apology ever could. She reached into her bag. I found something. She placed several documents on my desk. I didn't come here to ask you to take me back. I glanced at the papers. Then why are you here? Her hands trembled. Because Ryan is trying to destroy my family. I opened the first document. Then the second. My eyes moved across the numbers. My breathing slowed. These payments, they're connected to companies he controls. I turned another page. Then I stopped. One company name appeared in the records. Morgan Strategic Holdings. Claire's family company. I looked up. Emily's face had gone pale. He isn't only coming after my family. She swallowed hard. Ethan, I stared at the documents. He's coming after Claire too. Emily leaned forward. Please help me. This time, her voice broke. I know I don't deserve it. I closed the folder. My past had just walked back through the door carrying proof that my future was in danger. And suddenly, this was no longer about whether Emily regretted losing me. It was about whether the man she chose could destroy the woman I was beginning to love. Ryan knew I was investigating him before I finished reading the last document. My office door slammed open. He walked inside without permission, his expensive watch catching the light as he threw a folder onto my desk. You should stop digging. I didn't touch the folder. Is that a warning? It's advice. I leaned back in my chair. You're worried. His jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're getting involved in. I know exactly what I'm getting involved in. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of contracts, payment records, and emails. Ryan's face changed. You stole those. No. I lifted one page. Emily gave them to me. His confidence disappeared for half a second. That was enough. You're using her, he muttered. She finally realized you were using her. He stepped closer. Stay out of this. Or what? His eyes hardened. Your company could lose everything. I closed the folder. You're threatening me because you're scared. He leaned toward my desk. You have no idea how powerful I am. I stood, and you have no idea how little I have left to lose. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then Ryan walked away. I watched the door close. Claire entered moments later. Was that him? I nodded. She placed another file beside mine. Then we're ready. I opened it. What is this? Proof that Ryan moved Morgan funds through 4 shell companies. I turned the pages. There were transfers, fake loans, hidden ownership records, a plan to force Claire's family company into debt. My stomach turned. He wanted control. Claire nodded. And he planned to marry Emily after the takeover began. I looked at her. So he could control her family's voting shares. Exactly. I closed the file. We end this tomorrow. Claire reached across the desk and placed her hand over mine. Together? I looked down at our hands. Together. The next morning, I entered the Morgan boardroom with Claire beside me. The same long table stood in the center. It was almost impossible not to remember the night Emily ended our relationship. Back then, I had sat across from her with a ring in my pocket. Now I stood at the same table holding the truth. Ryan sat at the head. He looked relaxed. His lawyers were beside him. Several board members were already prepared to approve his proposed restructuring plan. Emily sat farther down the table. Her face was pale. Ryan glanced at me. You're late. I placed my folder on the table. No. I pulled out the first document. I'm right on time. The room went quiet. Ryan's smile faded. What is this? Your financial records. One board member leaned forward. Explain. I pushed the documents across the table. These companies received millions from Morgan International. Ryan immediately shook his head. Those are legitimate investments. I placed another page down. Then explain why the same companies transferred the money into accounts controlled by you. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Claire stood beside me. We verified every transaction. Ryan slammed his hand against the table. This is ridiculous. I placed another document down. Then this should make it clearer. It was the acquisition plan. His signature was at the bottom. The room changed instantly. One board member picked it up. Another reached for a copy. Ryan's hands began shaking. You don't understand what you're looking at. Emily finally spoke. I do. Everyone turned toward her. She pushed her chair back. I checked the records myself. Ryan stared at her. Emily. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. He lied to me. She swallowed. He told me he was protecting my family. Her fingers tightened around the documents. He was preparing to take it from us. Ryan stood. Don't do this. Emily looked at him. You asked me to leave Ethan because you said he wasn't ambitious enough. Her eyes became wet. You told me he was holding me back. She shook her head. You were the one using me. Ryan turned toward the board. This is a setup. I placed the final document on the table. No. I pointed to the signature. That's your signature. He stared at it, then at the board. His allies slowly moved their chairs away from him. One of his lawyers whispered something into his ear. Ryan pushed him away. You're all making a mistake. Nobody answered. The chairman stood. Mr. Blake, until this investigation is complete, your authority is suspended. Ryan's face went pale. You can't do this. We just did. Security entered the room. Ryan looked at me as they approached. You think you've won? I met his eyes. No. I glanced at Claire. I think you lost. They escorted him out. The door closed behind him. The room remained tense. Then Emily stood. Her hands were shaking. I need to say something. I knew what was coming. She faced the board. I chose Ryan. Her voice broke. I left Ethan because I believed I was choosing a better future. She took a breath. I was wrong. No one interrupted. I heard someone who never stopped supporting me. Her eyes found mine, and I have to live with that. I didn't move. The board meeting continued without drama. Ryan's authority was removed. The fraudulent transactions were frozen. Claire's company was protected. Emily's family avoided the collapse Ryan had planned. Justice had finally arrived, but it didn't feel like victory. Not completely. After everyone left, I stood alone near the same table where Emily had once broken my heart. She came back into the room. Ethan. I turned. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. That mattered. She wasn't asking me to feel sorry for her. I know I don't deserve another chance. I stayed quiet. I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything. She took one step closer. I just need to know something. I waited. Did you ever stop loving me? The question hit deeper than I expected. I thought about the ring, the photographs, our childhood promises. Then I thought about Claire's coffee beside my laptop, her hand on mine during the investigation, the way she trusted me without demanding anything. I finally understood the answer. I loved you. Emily's lips trembled. Past tense? I nodded. Yes. She closed her eyes. I continued before she could speak. I don't hate you. A tear slipped down her cheek. But I don't want you back. She nodded slowly. I understand. For once, she didn't fight me. She simply walked toward the door. Before leaving, she stopped. I hope she makes you happy. I looked toward the hallway where Claire was waiting. She already does. Emily lowered her eyes. Then she left. I remained alone for a moment. The same table that once made me feel powerless now held the documents that had exposed the man who betrayed her. I hadn't destroyed Emily. I hadn't needed to. Her choices had done enough. I picked up the final document and walked toward Claire. She didn't ask what happened. She only reached for my hand. And as we left the boardroom together, I realized something I never expected. I had spent months imagining revenge against Emily. But standing there, I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted peace. Then Claire's phone vibrated. She checked the message and frowned. What is it? She handed me the screen. Another account connected to Ryan had just moved money. I read the destination. My blood ran cold. The account wasn't Emily's. It wasn't Ryan's. It belonged to Claire's company. Ryan's plan wasn't finished. It had only entered its final stage. Emily was waiting for me outside the old cafe where we had our first date. I almost turned around, not because I was afraid of her, but because I no longer knew what we had left to say. She stood when I approached. You came. I told you I would. Her fingers tightened around her handbag. I don't know where to begin. Then don't force it. We sat across from each other. The same place where I had once spent hours dreaming about our future now felt like a room from someone else's life. Emily looked at my wedding ring. You really love her, don't you? I didn't answer immediately. That question deserved more honesty than a quick yes or no. I don't know when it happened. Her eyes lowered. But it did. She nodded slowly. I knew. I frowned. You knew. I saw how you looked at her during the board meeting. She gave a small, painful smile. You never looked at me like that after we broke up. I looked down at the table. You broke my heart, Emily. I know. I spent years believing you were my future. Her fingers trembled. And then you chose Ryan. She closed her eyes. I thought I was choosing a better life. You were choosing what you thought you wanted. And I was wrong. I took a slow breath. I loved you enough to build my entire future around you. Her eyes filled with tears. Do you still? I shook my head. Not the way you want. She wiped her cheek. Is there any chance? No. The answer hurt both of us. I could see it in her face. But I didn't take it back. She stared at me for several seconds. I used to think you would always wait for me. I did too. What changed? I touched the ring on my finger. You did. Her lips parted. Then she looked away. I wish I could undo it. You can't. I wish I had understood what I had. You understand it now. She nodded. But too late. I didn't argue. There was nothing left to argue about. Emily reached across the table, then stopped before touching my hand. I don't expect forgiveness. You have it. Her eyes lifted. Just like that. I don't want to carry anger anymore. She swallowed hard. What about us? There is no us. The words were quiet. They were also final. Emily stood slowly. I hope she gives you everything I couldn't. I looked at her. She already gives me something I didn't know I needed. What? Peace. Emily nodded. She didn't cry again. She simply walked toward the door. I watched her leave. Then I stopped myself. I didn't follow. I didn't wonder where she was going. I didn't imagine her turning around. I finished my coffee and walked away. Outside, the air felt lighter. Not because Emily had lost me, because I had finally stopped waiting for her to want me. When I returned home, Claire was sitting in the living room with a book. She closed it when I entered. How did it go? It ended. Her eyes searched my face. Are you okay? Yeah. I sat beside her. She asked if I still loved her. Claire's expression became still. And what did you tell her? The truth. She waited. I loved Emily. Claire looked down. And now? I reached for her hand. Now I love you. She froze. I had imagined saying those words many times. They had sounded dramatic in my head. In reality, they felt simple. True. Claire's fingers tightened around mine. You don't have to say that because of what happened. I know. You don't owe me anything. I know that too. She searched my face. Then why? Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being a business arrangement. Her eyes became wet. When? I smiled. Maybe when you remembered how I take my coffee. A quiet laugh escaped her. That? No. I squeezed her hand. Maybe when you trusted my decisions without trying to control them. She looked down at our hands. Maybe I fell in love with you before I realized it. My heart softened. You should have told me. I was afraid. Of what? That you'd always be comparing me to her. I turned toward her. I stopped comparing us a long time ago. She raised her eyes. Why? Because you never tried to become Emily. A tear rolled down her cheek. You don't know how long I've wanted to hear that. I pulled her closer. She rested her head against my shoulder. For a while, neither of us needed anything else. Our companies continued growing over the next year. The Morgan family survived the attack. My company expanded into new markets. We still argued about business. We still disagreed about small things. But our marriage was no longer built on signatures. It was built on choices. One evening, I opened an old drawer. Inside was the wedding photograph connected to the life I had once imagined with Emily. I held it for a moment. Then I removed it from the frame. Claire stood in the doorway. You don't have to erase the past. I know. I placed the photograph in a box. I'm not erasing it. I took out a new photograph. It showed Claire and me standing together after our first successful business deal. We were laughing. Neither of us knew the camera was there. I placed it inside the frame. Then I hung it on the wall. My old life had not disappeared. It simply no longer belonged in my future. Later that night, I opened my phone. Emily's unread messages were still there. I read the first one, then the second. Then I deleted them all. One by one. No anger. No satisfaction. Just closure. I removed my wedding ring and placed it beside Claire's ring on the table. She looked at me. "What are you doing?" I picked up mine. "When we married, this was a contract." I looked at her. "Now it's a choice." I slid the ring back onto my finger. Claire smiled. Then she offered me her hand. I took it. We returned to the place where we had first agreed to marry. The same room, the same table, but everything felt different. There was no contract between us now. No business strategy. No revenge. No need to prove anything to Emily. I stood beside Claire and held her hand because I wanted to. That was all. My childhood love taught me what heartbreak felt like. Claire taught me what being chosen felt like. And when I finally looked back at everything I had lost, I understood the truth I had been too blind to see. Sometimes the person who breaks your heart is not your greatest loss. Sometimes losing them is the moment you finally find yourself. I didn't win because Emily regretted losing me. I won because I stopped measuring my worth by whether she wanted me. And as Claire's fingers tightened around mine, I knew I had finally chosen the life that was waiting for me. Not because I needed revenge, because I had finally learned how to choose myself.